Yes, okay, ready, and turn.
So as a hardwood floor refinisher, I get asked quite often, what's the best type of hardwood floor finish to use? Is water-based better than oil-based? Is a commercial finish worth the extra cost? I usually say they're about the same as far as water-based and oil-based, and a commercial finish is worth the extra cost. But I'm never really sure 100% what's the best value or what's the best in general. So in this video, I'm going to try to answer that question and more. I'm going to do this by comparing 12 popular polyurethane finishes. They're all satin. I got 4 oil-based, I got 8 water-based, and I'm going to do a controlled scratch and abrasion test on them on the sample board right here. Okay, so the 12 finishes I picked up are Bona Woodline Poly wood floor finish, Varathane's Professional 1100 satin, Duraseal's Masterline Polyurethane. We got Minwax's super fast drying oil-based polyurethane for floors. Minwax's water-based oil modified polyurethane. We got Varathane diamond wood finish. We got Duraseal's Masterline water-based polyurethane. Then we got Norton PolyWhey 2500 wood floor finish and PolyWhey 3500 wood floor finish. Then on to Bona Mega waterborne wood floor finish. Then Bona Mega One wood floor finish and Traffic HD commercial satin. And all these are for floors. So before I start scratching, I'll kind of walk you through how I made this sample board and how I also made a device to scratch the floor nice and evenly throughout all the finishes. Alright, so I started off with some reclaimed engineered maple. This stuff has a nice thick wear layer, and I'm choosing maple because it's one of the harder of the hardwoods, so it'll really put the finish to the test. It's also a nice light colored wood, so it'll show the shade and how amber each of the finishes are. So this sample board I'm making here is going to be 4x7, so each of the 12 finishes will be a little over 2 square feet. I cut the ends flush, and then I nail the board to the end to kind of keep the sample board together and nice and strong. Then after drying overnight, I sanded it kind of like I would to a floor by starting with 40 grit on the big machine and then on the edger. I used 40 grit on both to take off this aluminum oxide finish. Then I gave it a thorough vacuuming and trowel filled the whole thing using a maple water-based wood filler. Then after it dried fully, I sanded off the filler using 100 grit on both the Clark edger and the big belt sander until all the surface filler was off, and then I just kind of gave it a final once over using 100 grit on the palm sander. Okay, right here I'm dividing the sample board into 2 so I can stain half of it. And I'm doing this so each of the 12 finishes can be tested over a natural part so you can see finish color and a darker stain part to help trying to show off the scratches better. And right here I'm water popping before I stain to help the maple absorb the stain nice and evenly. And then after the water thoroughly dries, I apply Bona Jacobine. This stain is compatible with oil and water-based finishes. So you put it on thick and then you wipe up all the excess. Then after the stain dries overnight, I divided the board into 12 equal areas, each exactly 2.1 square feet. So for all of these polyurethane finishes, the manufacturer says how thick to apply them. So here it says to apply between 5 and 600 square feet per gallon. So I'll split that and apply it at 550 square feet per gallon. But all these samples I'm making here are 2.1 square feet. So in that case, at 550 square feet per gallon, it would actually be 14.2 millimeters or milliliters. And I thought it would add 15% to each of these samples just to allow for the extra waste when the brush absorbs the finish. So in that case, it would be 16 milliliters for that sample area of 2.1 square feet. And as for solvent, I used, of course, mineral spirits for oil base and water for the water base. I'll also let you know the cost I paid for each of these finishes per gallon, and then I'll divide that by the rate each of these finishes cover per gallon, and then I'll come up with a price per square foot for the cost of each of these finishes. The numbers might not be that accurate for you though, because of your location or where you live, what store you went to, the sales guide's mood, plus I'm Canadian, eh? Okay, so the first product I start with is Bona Woodline Poly. This is an oil base, and it's the smelliest one of the bunch at 510 VOCs. So that's slightly higher than some of the other ones, or all the other ones. It takes 8 to 12 hours to dry. This is a quart, but to buy a gallon of this stuff would cost me $49.76. And it covers 500 square feet per gallon. So that would cost me 10 cents per square foot per coat, or 30 cents per square foot if you want it for all 3 coats. I used a combination of a scale and the markings on the side of this measuring cup to measure the quantity. This product kind of looks honey colored and seems a little thicker than the other finishes. This is actually a very popular product, possibly one of the most popular oil-based finishes that professionals use around here. I've used this stuff lots, and as with all these products, I use a T-bar and a cutting pad to apply them, not a little foam brush like on this sample board. This stuff seems to dry slightly less amber than the other oil-based ones here too. Okay, so for the second one, it's called Varathane Professional 1100 Satin. It's also an oil base, and as for smell, it's 500 VOCs, and its dry time is 3 or 4 hours. Sometimes I'll find that if they have faster dry times, it may make the smell seem worse, because it'll start drying and flashing off sooner and faster while you're still there applying it. So it cost me $74.99 per gallon, so that's 14 cents per square foot per coat. This stuff seems darker, and it dries more amber than the Woodline. I've used this stuff before, but I can't really remember too much about it, but it seems to go on nice and smooth here. So this one's called Masterline Polyurethane. It's made by Duraseal. It says commercial grade on it, so we'll see about that. This one's 492 VOCs and takes 8 to 10 hours to dry. And maybe I got some sort of sale or something on this one, but it was by far the cheapest at $41.76 per gallon, and it goes on at a rate of 550 square feet per gallon, so that works out, so it's only 7 cents per square foot per coat. I've used this stuff a few times at real floors, don't have any footage of that. It seems to go in a little thinner, which makes it nice and easy to apply, at least for me. Alright, so the fourth and final oil base on the sample board, it's Minwax's Polyurethane for floors. It comes in at 350 VOCs, so it's less toxic than the rest of the oil-based ones. It dries in 6 to 8 hours. It set me back $59.99, and it actually goes on really thin at 650 square feet per gallon, making it one of the thinnest. And that makes also work out to 9 cents per square foot, so it's also second cheapest. The color of this stuff is quite dark. It's the darkest, and after it dried, it seemed the most amber. I've never used this stuff before and was having trouble with it. It seemed like it was streaky with each coat I applied. I couldn't really fix that. I know people use this stuff and it turns out good for them, so maybe I just did something wrong, but I definitely couldn't figure it out. Okay, now for the water-based finishes. This one's another Minwax Polyurethane. So this is a water-based oil modified, so its solvent is water, but it's actually oil modified, which I assume is to give it a bit of an amber color. The 275 VOCs it has makes it the highest for all the water base I have here. Its dry time is 2 hours. It costs $64.99 per gallon, which would cover 500 square feet. So it's a decent 13 cents per square foot per coat. It has a bit of a yellow tint to it, and it dries with a bit of amberness also. It goes on quite nice. I've never actually used this on the floor, but maybe I'll try at least use this stuff up, I guess. Alright, next one up is Varathane's Diamond Wood Finish. And it has 275 VOCs, which also is one of the highest water-based ones here. It dries in 2 or 3 hours and costed me $80 per gallon. And this stuff goes on quite thick. It's second thickest out of all 12 of these finishes at 425 square feet per gallon, which will also make it the second most expensive at 18 cents per square foot per coat, which will start to add up after 3 coats. And right out of the can, this stuff looks very light and bright, but it does dry clear and light. I don't think I've used this stuff on a floor before, and the whiteness of this finish, as you can see in this clip right here on this coat, is very handy to tell how evenly it goes on and see if there's pools of finish lying around. So for the next 6 finishes, they all call for some type of a sanding sealer. So in the unstained areas for the next 6 finishes, I'll apply a sanding sealer instead of a first coat for those products. So 1 coat sealer and 2 coats product for the unstained areas, whereas the others will have all 3 of the same. So eventually all sample areas, stained or not, will have 3 coats of finish because the sealer counts as a coat. And as for sealer, I'm using a Bona Classic seal. Bona makes other sealers too, so you can control what kind of shade or hue you want your floor. Norton also makes some sealers. Alright, next finish is another Masterline Polyurethane. This one's a water-based one though, and it also says commercial grade on it. It cost me $50.98, covers 500 feet, so that's 10 cents per foot per coat, and is the cheapest water-based one here. I've never used this one before, but we'll have to try it sometime. Alright, next one up is Norton's PolyWhey 2500. This one goes, this one's 210 VOCs and cost me $70.09. This stuff goes on quite thin at 650 square feet per gallon, so that's almost the cheapest water-based one at 11 cents per square foot per coat. This finish seems different than the rest I've used. I've used this stuff quite a lot on floors. It feels slippery when applying, but it's quite easy to work with. It does seem to clog up sandpaper between coats though, but at the end it has a nice smooth look when it dries. It'll be interesting to see how tough this stuff is. Alright, next is Norton's PolyWhey 3500. So this is one step up from the last one. This stuff is by far the least toxic at 95 VOCs. It cost me $105.50 and it covers 650 square feet per gallon. So that's 16 cents per square feet per coat. I've used this stuff once before. It seems about the same as a 2500, maybe with a little bit more grain raise. Next is the popular Bona Mega, and it's 200 VOCs. It cost me $89.99 to cover 550 square feet, so that's 17 cents per square foot per coat. The price of this stuff kind of goes up and down a lot, though. I probably used this stuff more than all the other stuff combined, because this is a standard for residential floors around here. Next is Bona's newest finish. I'm cracking for my first time right here. It's a non-yellowing finish, and it's called Mega One. It's a pretty epic name. I think the one refers to being a one-part single component, whereas previously Bona's non-yellowing finish involved mixing two parts together. It's 205 VOCs, cost me $94.95 per gallon, covering 550 square feet, so that's 17 cents per square foot per coat. And yeah, I thought I'd try this stuff out on this board just to kind of test it out. This would be great over light-colored floors that might be prone to showing the yellowing of the finish over time. Alright, last but not least, Bona Traffic. This one's a two-part mixture and Bona's commercial finish. It's only 150 VOCs, so it's actually the second least toxic. This cost me $164.99, but I've seen it over 200 at some places. And it goes on the thickest at 375 square feet per gallon. So that's 44 cents per square foot, and that's 2.5 times the cost compared to the second most expensive. It's pretty tricky to apply as thick as they ask for. I've used this stuff lots, and it's really great for commercial areas. This shot shows it freshly done, and this clip here shows it after exactly 1 year of use in front of a bar at a popular restaurant. Also, this stuff is great for just adding a top coat over top of an existing finish, as seen here, because it's great for adhering to kind of questionable finishes, especially when you use it in combination with Bona Prep. I put 3 coats of finish on the floor, and I sanded in between each coat. I'll spare you all that footage. And then my wife neatly labeled all of the samples in the sample area. But since one of the finishes said something about a 30-day dry time, we had lots of time to come up with a device to scratch these floors. And this is what I came up with. We named it the Auto Scratcher, and I made it out of layers of MDF glued together. Then my wife painted it up. Its sole purpose is to create nice consistent scratches throughout these samples, nice and even. So the middle part pivots independently of the wheels and moves up and down. And the groove on top is made to hold a weight of a dumbbell, like up to 25 pounds. But I can also put on lighter weights if necessary. The bolts sticking out of the back are for mounting the different attachments. And as for attachments, I made 3 of them. The first 2 have nails sticking out. One's nice and sharp, and the other one's not quite as sharp. And the third attachment has Velcro on the bottom. And that's to attach different grits of sandpaper. I have 36 grit and 150 grit here. All of them, just mount right up to the back of the device, and I kind of choose what weight I want. And then you're good to go. Oh, this board I have is just kind of to see how it works, and actually, it seems like it works and scratches it quite nicely. I was having some trouble pulling at a consistent speed, and not sure if that matters, but just in case it did, I built this. It's a winch hooked to a battery and then hooked to a switch, and it does the trick perfectly. It pulls it nice and smooth and consistently. Side note, this sample board is half satin and half matte, and the satin side shows scratches more. So our sample board's been sitting in the corner of our house for the last almost 2 months now, because I haven't got around to this. But anyways, I'm finally ready to start scratching. So let's do this. All right, for the first test, I'm going to use the kind of dollar of the 2 nail bits, and I'm going to use that with a 20-pound dumbbell. All right, let's see how this goes. Alright, it's one, kind of pulls it a little crooked, but as long as it stays in the sample, I think it'll be fine. Alright, so the first test is complete. There's 12 scratches on this board now. They all handled it pretty well. I'll just kind of tell you the subtle differences. Only at one spot did it look like it penetrated the finish into the stain, and it was on the Minwax oil-based one, and it kind of hit the edge of a board, so maybe it just kind of snagged it a bit there. It seems like the Varathane diamond wood finish probably had the whitest looking scratch, even though it definitely didn't go through anywhere. And actually, it's interesting, the Bona Mega seems like it scratches whiter than the Bona Mega One or Traffic. And both PolyWhys did pretty good. All right, for this test, I'm going to use the sharper the nail heads, and I'm going to use a 3-pound weight. Hook it up. Put it on nice and gentle. I also straightened the wheels this time, so hopefully it's not so crooked. All right. With this nail and only 3 pounds weight, it pretty much did nothing for any of these samples. All right, so for the next test, I'm going to use the sandpaper attachment for this thing. It's got 36 grit sandpaper on it, and this stuff is extremely aggressive. It's actually made for taking off the hard pre-finishes, so none of this stuff should really have much of a chance. It's going to tear right through it. I also have 12 different pieces of sandpaper, so I can change the sandpaper in between each grit, just so it doesn't get clogged or anything like that. Oh, and I'm also using the 25-pound weight this time, so it's going to be the heaviest weight I put on. This one right here. Oh, yeah. Okay, so that test is done. There's not a whole lot of difference in between each of them. They all look very similar. If I were trying to pick it apart, I'd say that the Varathane Oil-based probably showed the scratches the most. And maybe the PolyWhys are doing good. The Norton 3500 probably showed it maybe the least out of this test. The PolyWhys and Bona ones are slightly better than the rest so far. Okay, so for this test, I'm going back to the nail. This is the more blunt nail, and I actually sharpened it up slightly. And I'm going to use a 25-pound weight instead of the 20-pound weight this time. So this is going to definitely start digging up those finishes, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so that test is done. There wasn't so much of a difference in between them again. Both Varathanes probably dug in the most, and the Nortons and the Bonas seem to do the best. All right, so for the next test, I'm going to use the sharp nail, and I'm going to start on the other side of the board and work my way this way, just in case the nail somehow does get dull. I'm going to switch it up and start from the other side of Bona Traffic with the sharp nail and a 20-pound weight. It's pretty much more the same. The Varathane and the Minwax kind of oil-based ones are kind of showing the scratches the most, and then the Nortons and the Bonas are doing the best. Okay, so none of those tests are doing too much, so this time I'm going to really make a difference. I sharpened the sharp one, so that's like super sharp now, and I'm going to put the heaviest 25-pound weight on it, so it's going to make a difference now. I'm also going to start from this other side again, the commercial traffic side. So that coat really kind of peeled up all the finish more, so I'll wipe it off so we can even see if it's through the finish. Clean it up here. All right, so that test pretty much just went through the finish on all of them, just kind of annihilated them. So for this next test, I'm gonna try to replicate a more of a long term with the abrasion. 150 grit screen, and I'm gonna use my arms and do maybe like 10 repetitions on each one with the 25-pound weight and see how that goes. Where's the earplugs? Okay, for this test, the sandpaper seemed to dig in and create little piles of dust everywhere. The oil bases all look the same. They all have quite big piles of dust. And then the water-based ones do for the most part. Both Norton PolyWhys didn't really sand well, so they might be doing pretty well. And then the Bonas did pretty good, but Mega One seemed to, the winning is by having the least amount of dust and the least amount of scratches. It seemed to have won this one. Alright, so I cleaned up the finishes, and I'm starting to be able to tell that it's starting to wear through the wear layer a bit. So I think I can do one more quick sandpaper test. This time I cut up 150 grit sandpaper that's not screen. I'm going to use a 20-pound weight just to help go through the finish a little bit more. Alright, for the 150 grit, I went through all the samples again. It's kind of more of the same. Varathane Diamond has a thick wear layer, but it seems like the finish comes off faster than anything else. The Varathane Professional for an oil-based did alright. And Bona Mega One and Traffic, they held up really well, along with the Nortons. Alright, so this is the final test. And it's the blunt nail bit. I kind of made sure it's nice and rounded over with a piece of sandpaper. I'm stacking 25-pound dumbbells, so it'll be 50 pounds on here. I'm going to try to scratch it beside the part that's already sanded on each of these samples. That might be a good test. It's kind of like testing for furniture. Should have said that. That was an interesting test because there's 50 pounds on that thing, and so it's kind of like a furniture weight. About half of the finishes, it broke through the finish layer, and half of them it didn't. Traffic was by far the best on this. It just looked really good across the whole thing. The Nortons looked pretty good. Which one was it? Oh, the Minwax Water-based was all right on this one. The Varathane Professional did all right on the furniture test too. Okay, so now I'm going to finish up and let you know how I like these finishes, how I rank them from first to last. And first place, big surprise, is Bona Traffic. It goes on thick and it takes quite a bit to wear off the finish. And even somehow on the furniture dent test, it seemed to indent less than the other finishes. Here's it compared to Varathane Diamond. Here's it compared to Masterline Oil-based. Here it is compared to PolyWhey 3500. I would say though that it's very hard to apply as thick as they ask for, even with the roller. And if you don't apply it that thick, it probably wouldn't have these great wear results. Alright, second place is a 3-way tie, and that's in between Bona Mega One and both the PolyWheys, the 2500 and the 3500. And these finishes did not scratch easy, and the scratches were white. And the finish didn't come off in piles either, like some of the other ones. And the 2500 is quite inexpensive also. So third place is a tie between Minwax's Water-based Oil Modified and Bona Mega. And both these finishes did pretty good. The finish didn't wear through to the stain, but the piles of finish were a bit bigger than the last ones. And also the finish didn't break through on the furniture drag test either. So fourth place is another 3-way tie, and they're all oil-based. Bona Woodline Poly, Varathane Professional, and Masterline Oil Polyurethane. And they're all starting to show the beginning signs of wear where they're going through the finish. And they're also starting to see a couple little chips on the furniture drag test. So now fifth place, it's a Varathane Diamond. And I had very high hopes for this one. Considering how thick this went on, it was very consistent and looked really good. But all that finish just wore right off into big piles on the abrasion test. And it scratched the whitest and got destroyed on the furniture test. So, and this stuff was not cheap either. So for sixth place, we got a 2-way tie, and that's in between Minwax's Oil Polyurethane and Masterline's Water Polyurethane. And both of these finishes just wore right through the finish, and they also got annihilated on the furniture drag test more than any of these other finishes. I guess it's possible that my measurements were slightly off when applying 3 coats of this stuff, but I don't think that would affect how white it scratches or how much finish came off when I did the abrasion test. So what's more durable, water-based or oil-based? Well, the most durable is water-based, and also one of the least durable is water-based. So, and the oil bases are kind of in the middle. And if you want to achieve a nice yellow look, the oil bases could be perfect. But some of the more expensive water-based did best in my test here today. Anyways, I hope this video was of some help to you deciding what finish you want, and thanks for watching.